This is the Final Word Daily. England playing India at Trent Bridge. We are coming to you from Trent Bridge and also from Canada because that's the way that we do things on the Final Word. It was day 2 of the second Test match, a big day for runs. Daniel Norcross has the job to tell us all about an entire day's Test cricket in the space of 30 seconds.
Blundell failed to reach his 100 at Lord's the last game. He joined Mitchell on the honours board this time at Trent Bridge as Mitchell crammed on 190 runs, Blundell 100 and something. They put on 240 odd. It was the same old story for a rather pitiful England attack that could barely get the ball to swing off the straight. That second new ball did absolutely nothing for them, but once they made the breakthrough, there was a kind of scatter of wickets. Yes, Michael Bracewell on debut made 49, but he was undone as England went through a passage of cagey play, hanging the ball outside off stump. They didn't know what to do, whether to stick or to twist the New Zealanders. Then wickets clattered. Then Mitchell was left with Trent Boult, and he just failed to make it to that double 100 that he was so clearly eyeing up, and he feathered one through to Folkes to give Potts his only wicket off the match. England went out to bat. They lost Crawley to a divine delivery, the best ball bowled in the entire match. For once he was unlucky. Then Pope played some beautiful shots in getting to a half century, but also played a couple of rather loose ones and could have been out. 2 drops by Daryl Mitchell. England could be in much worse position, but they are still just about fighting. It's 90-1.
Beautiful stuff. I love the race caller acceleration down towards the end. It was a Daryl Mitchell day at Nottingham. I mean, it was a Daryl Mitchell Test match really at Lord's until England got the better of it at the end. But this is where I want to start. Daryl Mitchell wasn't supposed to be in this team. Henry Nicholls was unavailable for the first Test, and that gave him a spot, made 108 there. And then with Williamson missing out, that meant Nicholls could come back without there being any squeeze. And Mitchell goes on and makes 190 here. Now, he's not supposed to be this good. You know, he's a chippy all-rounder who does a bit here and there. He's basically Grant Elliott for the new era, Daryl Mitchell. And yet here he is, peeling off back-to-back tons, nearly getting a double, and also putting together the most important partnerships of both of those Tests in innings where New Zealand are in trouble and he and Tom Blundell saved the day. It's a remarkable couple of weeks in the life of Daryl Mitchell.
It's extraordinary, isn't it? I wonder partly that England haven't had plans for him because they've not played that much against him, maybe in red ball cricket, or indeed anybody played against him that much. This is only his 11th Test match. But actually, I think it's more than that. He played proper Test match innings. I think I probably mentioned it to you last week. He played it with an aggressive defence. He was as delighted to hit the ball firmly to mid-off for no run as he was to whack it for 4. Very occasionally, elements of that hard-hitting sort of white ball cricketer came out when he would suddenly become frustrated with James Anderson and have a go at him, try and smack one back over his head. But it was increasingly rare for that to happen. He knew that the pitch didn't have many demons, that the ball was barely swinging around, barely moving off the straight, and that he had a tired attack that he and Blundell had made tired. They'd earned the right, and I think he thought, well, I'm out here now. How many other opportunities am I going to get to 190, 200 runs in Test cricket? He was going to fill his boots. It was a tremendous knock, and it was actually, if you looked at his pulling and his hooking, it was more pulling than hooking. He got right on top of every shot. Now, I mentioned earlier that Ollie Pope played some sumptuous shots and is actually looking in pretty good nick for his 50, but he did pull the ball in the air a few times, and Mitchell just never did. He didn't give a hint of offering a chance off those kind of deliveries. Now, he could have been out very cheap. He could have been out for 3 on the first day. Had that happened, New Zealand would have been 170 for 5, but he ground England into the dust, and their ground fielding got worse, their catching got worse. I saw some uncharacteristic misfielding from Jimmy Anderson at one stage. I mean, that can happen when you're out in the field for a long time, but they were marvellous, the two of them. And let me give you a stat, which I think you're going to like, Jeffrey, because you do like a number. These two, Blundell and Mitchell, have become the first pair of batters to score 2 partnerships in excess of 190 against England in England since Bradman and Ponsford in 1934. That's a long time. And there is no way that you would think it was going to be Blundell and Mitchell.
In the same breath, Bradman and Ponsford, Blundell and Mitchell, the great pairings. But Blundell's doing this job as well. So if Daryl Mitchell is the new Grant Elliott, Blundell's just making himself the new BJ Watling. Come in at 6 or 7 when there's a bit of trouble and get New Zealand out of it calmly and efficiently. Didn't quite get the 100 at Lord's, as you said, but got to 106 in this match. So got to not have that slight disappointment. I always find it strange when we focus on the disappointment of having made, say, 190 rather than having made 200. Most players will probably take 190 if you offered them that when they were on naught. But Blundell managed to not have that frustration of missing out on 100 on tour as well. And then we get Michael Bracewell coming in. And this part is fascinating. The Bracewell tribe in New Zealand cricket. So there were 4 Bracewell brothers. John Bracewell was an off-spinner, and Brendan Bracewell was a quick, and they both played for New Zealand. There were Douglas and Mark Bracewell, both played first-class cricket in New Zealand, didn't make it to the national team. Their father played district cricket, played in the Hawke Cup. He was also a John Bracewell. And then there's the third generation Bracewells. There's Doug Bracewell, who's the swinging all-rounder who's played for New Zealand before. And then Michael is his cousin, so he becomes the 4th Bracewell to play for New Zealand and the 7th to play high-level cricket in New Zealand. I can't help it. There's a brace of them. There's more than a brace of them. It's extraordinary. But in he comes, and this is the bit that really gets me, Daniel. They've brought him in as a spinning all-rounder. Now, he spent most of his career as a wicket-keeper. He's 31 years old. He's not an up-and-comer. He played 10 seasons of first-class cricket in which he bowled 14 overs. He had 7 seasons where he never bowled at all. He didn't take a wicket in the first 10 years of his first-class career. And then suddenly in the last 3 seasons, he's become an off-spinning all-rounder, and he's picked up 27 wickets in 3 seasons and bowled hundreds and hundreds of overs. So they've brought him in as in place of Colin de Grandhomme, essentially as an all-rounder, but one who can do a bit of off-spin tweaking. And he played a beautiful 49. He was just lacing shots through the offside, off his legs, looked superb coming in at number 7. It's very New Zealand.
It's very New Zealand. The BBC chief cricket writer Stephen Shemmelt opined on seeing a little bit of Bracewell that he thought if he was playing for England, he would be either their 2nd or 3rd best batter after Root and possibly on a par with Stokes, which I don't know what it tells you about England's batting at the moment, but it tells you something about the quality of Bracewell's knock. He did unfurl some lovely shots. We've got to caveat that by saying that he came in at, 405 for 5? Tired bowling attack, a pretty manky ball that wasn't doing anything on a pitch that wasn't offering much. So, he had the best possible opportunity, and he did look a bit nervous when he first came in. He pushed his first ball and went herring off for a completely impossible single. But you're right, it's yet another Bracewell being a more than serviceable cricketer who, as you say, used to be a keeper. I don't know. I'm looking forward to seeing his off-spin if it's required, because those numbers are a little odd, aren't they? Average is 47 and a half. At his age, to have taken 27 wickets, is he an off-spinning all-rounder? Time will tell. But I think there's every chance we might see him, because if anything, there was a bit of turn out there, and Jack Leach was starting to extract some. He had a really tough time of it, Leach. He bowled a very long spell, and he didn't bowl badly, but he was rather unfortunate in being selected on a pitch that very rarely do spinners prosper. And when England won the toss, they elected to bowl, so he was bowling on the first and second days, which was a little bit unlucky.
But he had a really tough time of it. Could just be the epitaph for Jack Leach's entire career. I mean,
that's true.
There doesn't seem to have been a test match where he didn't have a tough time of it. 2 for 140 for Jack Leach in the end, after having to do a lot of work. And Matthew Potts as well, coming down to earth, 1 for 128, picked up the last wicket, like you said. But after that dream start at Lords, where he was just bagging wickets in his first over, he had to toil and toil and toil. Stuart Broad gave up a century as well. And James Anderson, the New Zealanders just kind of girded their loins and kept him out as best they could. But 3 for 63 for him from 27 overs, I think he bowled. So extraordinary economy. But given that when a team's racking up 550, most of the bowlers are going to go for more than 100, and most of them did.
Well, absolutely, and he bowled well. They weren't quite his conditions. If you're not here, you can't really appreciate just how windy it is. You might be able to hear it now, though, because the wind is whistling around. And I think there might be a paper bag about to come into shot. No, it's just landed on a chair. But it's been that kind of a day.
The excitement! I was on the edge of my seat. So was the paper bag.
It was floating through the air, but it just didn't quite make it into shot. But it hasn't helped in a way, the swing bowlers, and England don't have a big bang-it-in bowler that they really do need. It's been not inclement. We had half an hour loss to rain today. They made it back up, of course. Just came out of nowhere, and it just spiced up the pitch for a brief period of time. But on Anderson, I mean, one of my favourite passages of play was when Australia were 5 down and Bracewell was on 49, England adopted this extraordinary policy. They had bumpers at one end from Broad, and they had Anderson hanging it outside off stump from the other end, and it was the most deliciously chaotic stalemate you could wish to see. It was very cerebral cricket, and in the end Anderson won it because he got the wicket, and no one ever really got after Anderson, which is a testament to his skill, yes, to a degree, to the length he bowled. He bowled a length that you couldn't get after. And it was also a response, I think, to the fact the pitch didn't give him quite what he wanted, and that there was just this very annoying wind. And you know how Jimmy Anderson can look less than happy at the best of times, but when there's a wind and he's 39 years old and his weather-beaten face is like looking, oh, Wolves, really? Oh, I gotta go on doing this. England cut a sort of slightly weather-beaten dash, but he stood again. I mean, I wouldn't say he was head and shoulders above. Stokes was probably a more dangerous wicket-taking threat through most of the innings, but he provided a control, and he broke the stalemate, and it created some great comedy cricket towards the back end of New Zealand's innings.
So 553 all out for New Zealand, and then England reply. People who just look at the scorecard will see Crawley caught behind for 4 and think that he played another lavish drive. He didn't. He got a perfect delivery from Trent Bolt, scrambled seam. It decked away, but it kicked off the pitch as well. It leapt at him and took the shoulder of the bat, and while he was trying to play straight and defend against the in-swinger. So he played with soft hands. He did the things he was supposed to do, but that ball was anything but soft, and it flew through for the catch behind. But then
it was a ball of the match, Jeff. It was a ball of the match, and I was with Jared Kimber on SEN commentary, and he said how much one believes in these things, I don't know, but he made a convincing case. He said it's a 3/4 seam ball, and so you're basically angling the seam more towards gully, and it had the effect of the ball swung in slightly, didn't it, and then it kicked off the pitch and went away. And I do feel for Crawley there, because there are many times when we say, well, what kind of a shot was that? On this occasion, he covered his off stump, he stayed there, he didn't really do anything wrong, but it's just nicked the shoulder of the bat, and that's when you're thinking, well, I might as well go out and have a whack next time, if you know what I mean. So it was a beautiful piece of cricket. It was a lovely ball from a really class bowler. Simple as that.
And then Ollie Pope goes on and makes 51, and this is interesting because Ollie Pope at first drop has been not greeted with warmth by a lot of people, but it was explained that this was basically Ben Stokes as the new captain saying, I want Pope in the team, but I'm going to bat at 6. I want Bairstow in the middle order. Root will be at 4 because that's where he goes, and so it was either put Root to 3 and Pope to 4 or vice versa. So it was really Stokes' backing that has kept him in the team even though out of position. And he had better batting conditions, more Ollie Pope style batting conditions, more oval in county championship batting conditions to make use of, and looked pretty good in his brisk 51. But I don't think it necessarily answers any questions about his ability to say counter a moving ball in the second over of a match. It doesn't do is it doesn't tell us whether he's a top 3 batter, because I've, as you know, I think Ollie Pope is a supremely gifted and talented player, and I think if he'd been in a normal England team from 15-20 years ago, he would have slotted in at 5, and he would have had a career a bit like Ian Bell's. He'd have found his feet, he'd have learnt about Test cricket, and he might well have been up at number 3 by the time he was in his late 20s, but they're making him do that early when he hasn't done that for Surrey. And we know that if you bat the top 3, it's about what you leave as much as what you play. Ollie Pope has got so many scoring options. A lot of top 3 players actually don't have many scoring options, and they limit themselves to the ones they've got, especially openers. You think about Alistair Cook, for example. Think of Tom Latham. They're supremely good at denial. Now, teaching a really talented number 5 about denial on the job, it's quite tricky. So, look, the jury will remain out. It doesn't stop me marvelling at some of the shots. Some of those cover drives today were to die for. They were beautiful. But similarly, he hit 2 sixes, one straight over the wicket-keeper's head and one down to long leg, which were shots he just shouldn't have played. And he got away with them today, and he won't get away with them on other days. So look, he may well learn on the job, and he may well deny himself, and he may well turn into a great number 3.
but it's hard. It's called, as they say, it's called Test cricket for a reason, Jeff.
Oh, they do like that line.
That old one.
Like saying
Do you
it's
like
a
that
funny
one?
game.
Yeah. It's a funny
good one.
old game,
real original
Jeff.
stuff. Oh, and he's seeing it like a watermelon.
Yes.
Ban all of it. I want to ban all of that stuff from commentary. The Final Word Hall of Fame is when we pick the most final word moments of the day. I enjoyed the 2 overs after the lunch break where you thought, maybe they come back and consolidate. And no, it's Michael Bracewell on debut who plays a gorgeous on drive for 4, then a crisp pull shot through mid-wicket for 4, and then in the next over, Daryl Mitchell carves a cut shot off Leach for 4, dances down the track and pops him into the stand for 6, cuts him for 3, and then Bracewell drives him for 4. The first 2 overs after the lunch break, and they've just gone absolutely hog wild, laying into the bowling. Runs are flying, the scoreboard's catching fire. And I just thought, well, you have to enjoy watching this New Zealand side play.
Yes, I think that's a perfectly good selection. My one is different. It's more tragic in a way. It's when Broad went for the bumper strategy and Bracewell, the left-hander, was in along with Daryl Mitchell, a right-hander. Because they insisted on just bowling bumpers to a sort of 6-3 leg side field. Might even have been 7-2, I don't know. Ben Stokes, the captain, because he kept getting singles, had to go from, he decided to go from mid-wicket to mid-wicket. At Trent Bridge, that's about 140 yards. So he was running 140 yards, one ball after the other ball after the other ball. And there was this just beautiful sight of England fielders just traversing the entire outfield and going back again. And they didn't complain. They didn't go, oh, for fuck's sake. They just got on with it. They just went jogging. It was like watching people, down a promenade on the sea, having their morning constitutional. I rather enjoyed it.
I'd also throw in there the fact that when they were 6 down, New Zealand then lose 3 wickets in 7 balls. Daryl Mitchell's on about 169 when this starts, and then he's batting with the number 11 Trent Bolt. To see if Mitchell can get to 200, and Trent Bolt, twice in his first 4 balls, charges down the pitch and whacks Jack Leach down the ground for 4. You have to enjoy watching Trent Bolt operate. Yes. He hit another 3 boundaries, I think, and Mitchell got to 190 and ended up feathering one behind. So Trent Bolt was still there. Trent Bolt was doing his job. It's just he did his job from about halfway down the track most of the time against the spinner. So they're our nominations for the Hall of Fame on day 2. And that has been the Final Word Daily. We do this show every day of the Test series. That's why it's called the Daily. Adam Collins will be back tomorrow with Daniel Norcross. I'm Jeff Lemon. If you like what we're doing, patreon.com/thefinalword is where you can support it. And aside from that, we'll see you tomorrow.
Goodbye.